Good morning. This is Greg Scully with 501 Commons, and welcome. Welcome this morning to GiveBIG Match with Ariel Glassman and Caroline Rensel. It's great to have you here this morning. We've got a lot packed into this presentation this morning to help you and your organization grow your GiveBIG. And the match is an excellent tool and way to do that. We're going to learn all about that today. But we're going to start first with a real quick overview of 501 Commons, if you don't mind. Can everybody see this? So, somebody give a thumbs up and see that you can see good, great, thank you. So 501 Commons is an organization. We are a nonprofit that serves other nonprofits, and we provide a wide variety of services. These include HR, finance, database design, tech support. We have all the things in the back office to help your organization grow and thrive. Everything from doing bookkeeping services to being your tech company support are just some of the services that we offer. Additionally, we have other things like seminars that go into board matters, finance, recruiting, just all sorts of different things that we do with our partners in nonprofits. So please contact us for free advisory services. That is something I do, and I run our nonprofit advisory service. So a way to get in touch with us is just to fill out a form and ask questions, everything from how do I get fiscal sponsorship for an organization to where do we hire the best next executive director. So just wide variety of different things we can do for you. One of the things that we also do every year is we run the Washington Gives campaign, which includes Give Big. And so today it's my pleasure to turn you over to Caroline Rensel and Ariel Glassman today. They are trainers extraordinaire and consultants in their own right, and I will let them introduce themselves. We have a ton of resources available for you, and I'm going to let Ariel and Caroline take it over from here because they are our experts in leading us forwards in GiveBIG Match. So Caroline, Ariel, take it away.
Thanks, Greg. Yeah, can do. Just a couple housekeeping things. Be sure to check out the Resource Center, the GiveBIG website, as well as the signing up for the Fundraising Accelerator newsletter. And then I think got a couple key dates here. Launch of early giving, last day to register page being April 15th, and then the actual 2-day event on May 2nd and 3rd. Okay, so hello. My name is Caroline Rensel, as Greg mentioned, and I am a consultant with Common Great. I've been running GiveBIG campaigns since 2015, so 8 years of doing this in kind of all different roles. I've been a development director. I've been a development manager with nonprofits, large and small, although my sweet spot, my favorites are definitely small to mid-sized organizations. And I actually really love GiveBIG in particular. I think it's a day or 2-day event with a lot of energy. I am definitely sitting there watching those progress bars going up and just, getting all the adrenaline out of that. So excited to share with you how you can use matching gifts to even up that excitement. And I'll let my co-presenter and strategy guru, Ariel, introduce herself.
Thank you, Caroline. Hi, everyone. I'm Ariel Glassman. I am the founder and CEO of Common Great. Caroline will tell you a little bit more about us in a second. But we might be familiar with each other if you've come to any of the 501 Commons webinars on GiveBIG in the last couple of years, or earlier ones hosted by the Seattle Foundation. I've done this training a number of times. Like Caroline, I'm a professional fundraiser. I've been fundraising for over 20 years, and I've been doing GiveBIG campaigns since 2011, the very first year. So like Caroline, I love giving days. I think they are a big tentpole moment in the community where we get to have everybody at the table celebrating the potential of what we can all do together. I love that energy. I love that feeling. I love what it says about the world that we live in. So it's really fun and to be able to get to help organizations do this for our living. So I I'll pass it back to you, Caroline. Although actually what I will say is one of the reasons I invited Caroline to join me this year is that although I've done this training the last couple of years, Caroline has actually run most of our clients' Give Big campaigns in the last few years. So she's really my in-house expert on this now. And so I wanted to make sure that she got to bring her expertise from the last couple of years to the table for you guys and not just mine.
Awesome. And as we mentioned, we are Common Great. You can check us out on our website there. We do fundraising strategy, campaign tools and tech as a particular passion of Ariel and mine. And we just recently launched hiring support for fundraising positions. So if any of these areas are something that you're interested in learning more about, go ahead and check out our website and give us a shout. We'd love to talk more. Right. I like to kick off with a land acknowledgement. 501 Commons offices are on the homelands of the tribes of the Coast Salish and Duwamish people. I'm actually calling in from Wenatchee, Washington, which is on the Cayuse, Umatilla, Walla Walla, Wenatchee, Yakima, and Confederated Tribes of the Colville Reservation land. We have a big confluence of different peoples here. And I think as we go forth and, we all work with organizations that do work on these lands, we're raising money to support that work. I think it's important to acknowledge that history, and land acknowledgements, I think, are a great first step in building real and authentic relationships and partnerships with Indigenous communities today. So just taking a moment to reflect on that as we get started. There we go. All right, so quick overview. The intention is we'll save a lot of time for questions at the end, but we'll touch on a couple key concepts you're going to want to keep in mind when thinking about your matching gift strategy. We'll dig deep into why do one in the first place, talk about how to utilize the Mighty Cause platform and the different types of matches you might employ, and different strategies therein. Whether or not you might want to do multiple matches and how you want to time those. And then we'll talk about where do you get a match from? Who do you talk to? And how do you promote that match? And then we'll wrap it all up by taking a step back and applying an equity lens to all of these concepts. So if you've attended one of these presentations with Ariel before, you have heard about these two concepts. I can almost guarantee it. The first one is that campaigns, whether they're 1 day long or 1 year long or anywhere in between, tend to be U-shaped. So we see more activity at the very beginning and the very end, and tend to see a little bit slower, less momentum happening in the middle. And that matters because you might want to position a match to intervene with that slow period, even on a 2-day campaign. If you're not participating in early giving and you're just focusing on make it second and third, we sometimes see a little bit less activity on the second day. So a match might be something, a lever you might pull to intervene in that. The other concept we want to talk about is the goal proximity effect. And this is the relatively simple psychological phenomenon that the closer you are to a goal, the more excited folks are to help you achieve it. So this affects the size of goal we want to set in relationship to our match. And we'll go into this a little bit more, like when you want your match to kick in relative to what your overall goal is. And again, I think this is a pretty simple concept. When we see that social proof that there are lots of people behind a campaign and you're really close, it becomes quite tangible to get there. And so we want to get in that, oh my gosh, they're so close, I want to help them close that gap moment as soon as we can. And you can always set a stretch goal. So that's something to keep in mind as well. All right. To back up, though, why do we do matches at all? And the simple answer is because they really, truly do work. There's a reason why your public radio station is always talking about matches. They really do incentivize folks to give. Matches increase the likelihood that someone will give. They convert donors. So, when we see people landing on a donation page, the presence of a match will actually have a higher conversion rate of people who make a gift. It increases the gift size, dollars raised, and matches can really help with donor acquisition, which historically GiveBIG has been a great time for bringing new donors to your organization, and matches just amplify that effect. There's some great stats from the Big Give below here from donors saying, like, I really truly did give, or I increased my gift because there was a match present. And I think that last point about campaigns with matches raised 3 times more on average than those without is important to keep in mind. This is the slide maybe to revisit when we send out the PowerPoint and take to your potential matching donor or donors and say, this is why we need this. They really, really do help. All right, so the Mighty Cause platform is really great because it is so flexible. It's actually one of the most flexible match supporting platforms I've worked with. It allows you to have multiple matches and to time matches, a single match or multiple matches out at different times. There are different types of matches you can employ in the Mighty Cause platform, and we'll go into this a little bit on the next slide, but you can have that really classic 1-to-1 percentage match. So 100%, 50%, 200% of your match is matched. And you can actually within that set some criteria about like setting a maximum on how large a gift can be matched, what amount within that can be matched. And there's also some great conditions you can look at. So opposite of a maximum, you can set a minimum before a match kicks in. You can choose whether or not to include offline donations and peer-to-peer fundraisers in your match. And you can choose whether you want to apply a match just once per donor to stretch it a little bit further. So digging into percent versus threshold. Again, that percent match is I make a $5 gift. There's instantly $5 more plus my gift reflected in your progress bar and your total on your way to your goal. I think this is really great because it helps have constant momentum and you're going to just accelerate towards your goal fast. And I, again, really love that Mighty Cause, the GiveBIG platform lets you set a maximum amount that can be matched. And this is great because while we all love and really want that surprise $10,000 gift we didn't know about, if you have a $10,000 match, I have had this happen. Actually, it can be a bummer to have that be all eaten up instantly. So you could say only, 1,000 or 500 or whatever the amount is will be matched of a large gift. Ariel?
Yeah, I wanted to remark, you can see it here that you can set your match percentage, looks pretty flexibly. We even mentioned up to 200% on the last page. There actually is data that shows that 200% matches, so 2-to-1 match is the most effective match we have. 1-to-1s are great. But what I will say is that logic does not extend past 2-to-1. So there's no reason statistically to do a 300% or 400 or 500% match. Those are going to eat that match up faster, and they're not going to get you farther in terms of all those positive effects that Caroline named from a match being present. So I always like to name that where it's not, the sky's not the limit. You don't want to be matching 1,000% or 10 times everybody's gifts just because 200 is better than 100. But 200 does do better than 100.
Yeah. Another thing to keep in mind, I think most of us, I think even the previous GiveBIG platform, like just a percent-based match was what our option was. We also have the option of threshold-based matches. And basically that means when something happens, when a certain amount of money is raised, when a certain quantity of donations come in or a certain number of donors participate, then your match unlocks or rolls out. This is, if you're familiar with Kickstarter, kind of normalized by that kind of campaign. And what I think is really interesting and exciting about cumulative threshold matches is that you can set a match that's based on participation rather than dollars raised. If you're really going for, acquisition, wanting to celebrate gifts of all sizes, saying we're going for 200 donors over these 2 days, and that will unlock our matches. That may inspire some folks who are like, wouldn't give otherwise to say, you know what, I can help them hit that goal because I can see, you know, how many donors they are, and I know that I'm going to move them closer to that goal. So something to consider. Okay, and within that, there's some more fine tuning you can do. You can set a minimum. So this will help drive up your average gift. If you do set a minimum, you can look at your past GiveBIG data, or, you know, any giving day or campaign data you have for your organization to say like, usually our average gift size is $20. We're going to set our minimum to be matched at $20, and that will move people below that average up potentially and increase your overall gift size. You can also choose whether to include offline donations, so that donor who calls you up and says, I'm going to support GiveBIG, but I'm sending you a check, or I'm making it via my donor advised fund. This allows you to enter those on the back end and have them be matched. So you can call that donor back and say like, great, your gift is in and it was matched. Highly recommend that, because the classic example is my mother, who will only ever give via check, despite the fact that her daughter is a professional fundraiser. We want to make those folks able to participate in the match as well. You may choose whether or not to have peer-to-peer fundraisers included. Ariel and I are same time, Wednesday at 10 next week, going to dig deep into peer-to-peer fundraising for GiveBIG. But giving your peer-to-peer fundraisers access to your matching dollars will just help them leverage that to secure more donations on your behalf. But you might also choose to not have that apply. You know, you might know that folks landing on your organization's GiveBIG donation page know you, care about you, are going to become, you know, repeat donors, and peer-to-peer donors maybe not, and you want to save that just for your organizational donors. So the system allows flexibility there. Different ways to do it. And then the final checkbox there is applying the match once per donor. I have worked at organizations where we have really fabulous volunteers or community members or board members who love to give, you know, 2, 3, 4 times over the course of GiveBIG. They get that, like, having all that extra momentum is helpful. But if you want to spread that match out a little bit further and you know they're going to do that, clicking this just means you can, you know, include more folks in the match, though we love them and they'll get matched the first time they give. Oh, and the last thing to note is there's a handy dandy spot there to put in your matching donor's email if you have just one matching donor, and they'll be notified when either your, you know, match goal is hit or the match is unlocked. And do that. It's great. Why not? But also make sure you're still calling them or sending them a personal email, a thank you card, all those stewardship touches, because it is a robot and it will probably look a little robotic. Multiple matches, and why you might want to think about multiple matches if either you've, you know, got matching funds coming from 2 different places, or you've got a large matching gift that you decide to split. I think these are great because if you have more than one, you can work on different goals. So you can have that classic percentage 1-to-1, 100% of a gift is matched, non-threshold match. But if you really want to focus on acquisition, you might consider setting a threshold match. It also, having multiple matches allows you to sort of control the message of urgency at different points in your campaign. So say that you want to have a match going during early giving because you haven't seen as many gifts during that period in the past, or you want to have it on day 2 because you haven't seen as much activity on day 2 in the past. Great things to consider to, you know, increase your momentum during those times. And then, as we talked about on the previous slide, you might choose to strategically include or exclude peer-to-peer fundraisers. Okay.
Yeah, and one thing I would add to this, as Caroline mentioned, just because you have multiple matches doesn't actually mean you need to necessarily go find multiple people who can make a large gift. If you have one $10,000 donor who can provide a match, this to go to them and actually say, we have 2 things we want to do with your money. These are different outcomes. These are the different ways you're helping build our program and build our donor base and build the sustainability of these efforts. Don't feel like you have to go source those separately. And honestly, even small dollar amounts stretched out across 2 matches, depending on the size of your goal, can be really effective. So I don't want you guys to feel intimidated by the idea that multiple matches can get you farther, because it doesn't necessarily have to come with all of this extra work of trying to find 2 donors, just to name that.
Absolutely. And related to multiple matches, I think, is you get to play with timing if you have multiple matches of any size. So as we mentioned, you might want to start a match during early giving so that you're able, day one of the campaign, you might be at 25% or 50% or 75% of your goal. And that can be super motivating, in regards to the goal proximity effect. Or if you're not, you don't have the capacity to participate as much in early giving, and you're just going to ride that wave of attention and energy on day one, you start your match that, totally valid choice. And also, you might want to think about a day 2 match, because there's nothing better than, cutting through the email noise of day 1 by starting day 2 with a announcement that we have a surprise, we have a match. I think the most important thing to think about with timing is don't go too small. So no power hour in the next hour only matches, just because there is so much noise, so many emails, so much social media going out. There's a good chance your donors may not see it in time. It may feel sad that they didn't get to participate. So I recommend having a match go for at least 24 hours.
Yeah. And I just want to chime in, and Caroline said the magic word earlier in this, which is capacity. One of the questions we get a lot is, should we do early giving? Should we make that investment? My general answer to that question is yes. And then in general, the wisdom of allotting a match to that period is also a yes. But I also want to name that GiveBIG is, lots of the organizations that participate might be completely volunteer run, where they don't have a ton of staff time to devote to this. And maybe the idea of actively strategizing that for 2 weeks during early giving feels really stressful, or like you don't have the capacity to do that. That is a-okay. And in that case, I would say, if you have multiple matches, having one that is day 1 and another one that's day 2, I mean, those are all really good strategies. Play with that timing, even if you don't have that lever of the early giving campaign. And it is okay to choose not to do early giving if it is a burden on the organization, which we hope it isn't. We hope more of you are positioned to do that, because it's great to do if you can.
Okay, so we've, broad strokes gone over some of the controls you might want to have and strategy for implementing your match, but where are you getting this match from in the first place? I want to echo what Ariel said a couple minutes ago about thinking about that matches of all sizes can be powerful. So almost no match too small, maybe $100 is a little bit too small, but depends on what your goal is. So if you have done GiveBIG before and had a matching gift, or done another campaign where you've had a matching gift, those donors are probably the low-hanging fruit, easiest folks to approach. They understand why this is powerful and useful to you in rallying community support. Your board and your volunteer, folks who really get it and, are going to take the least persuading, really, might be the first folks to look at. And if you've done GiveBIG in the past and you've received a large gift or two, and again, for some organizations, a large gift can be, $500, totally solid match. You might approach those donors and say, we know you like to give during GiveBIG and you care about this and you're, into the excitement. We want to bring you behind the scenes, and we'd like to position that gift as a match this year to inspire more community support. I think the opportunity to bring them in on this philanthropy process in your organization can be really powerful and exciting to donors. Again, it's sort of that behind the scenes. Please help us actually not just, achieve our mission, but you can help us achieve our mission by inspiring even more support for our mission. My favorite approach, actually, especially for small organizations who haven't had a match before, is to consider a matching pool. And this means you're working with a group of individuals who are contributing and may have capacity of a variety of sizes. to make up a matching gift. So in the past year, I've had one organization who they turned to their board members and said, we have 5 board members. Can everybody kick in $200? We're all planning to support GiveBIG anyways. And we had a $1,000 match, to start day one with. Really powerful. And they got to experiment and see that effect. Another example, an organization who just asked their board members, would you contribute to a match goal? Didn't say a size of gift. And we ended up with a just wackadoodle number. It was like 3,725. And I think those strange numbers are actually okay, especially on matching pools, because it illustrates that really this is a community support. We had somebody give 25, we had somebody give 50, we had someone give 2,500. That's totally okay. And, I think the equity perspective on this one, having the chance to celebrate more of a community support behind your match is all to the good. The last thing I'll mention is you might think creatively about if there are corporations or local businesses that you work with, that you partner with, that might be interested in the extra PR opportunity you can give them as a matching sponsor, essentially. I think like local businesses, if you don't have those big corporate relationships, are an interesting place to look. Another example I'll share is I have a client who their research partner actually saw their GiveBIG campaign last year and was so excited that they hit the goal. They actually showed up, contacted us on day 2 of GiveBIG and said, we want to match that. So you can bet we're going to approach them and say, would you make that gift ahead of time this year so we can message it as a match? Again, would not have occurred to, I think, their staff to think about the research partner as a potential matching donor, but they were. So just things to think in mind. Great. Okay, so we've secured a match. We've set all the different controls on when we want it to kick in and who it's going to affect and when. I don't want us to forget to talk about it. I think this almost doesn't need saying, but in case it does, I'm going to say it. So message your match, loud and proud, centered on your GiveBIG page, on the donate page on your website, which hopefully is rerouting folks to the GiveBIG page. And just, following up, if you attended Ali from Message Media Lab's presentation on Friday on storytelling around GiveBIG, incorporate your match into that storytelling and all the things you've set up with a really good funder communication strategy. So how do we talk about what our goal is and why getting these donations now at this time of year, what that's going to let us do through the rest of 2023, and what doubled impact looks like. I think some organizations are able to say, if you donate $5, we can purchase 5 pairs of socks. And with our match, that'll become 10. If you have those sort of, tied to physical objects, really tangible things, impact statements, that's great. But if you don't, there are other ways to, because sometimes those can be kind of complicated or difficult to suss out. There's other ways to talk about what doubled impact will mean for your organization to motivate folks to take advantage of the match. I think it's important to think about where donors are going to be, where they can take action right away. So I love a subject line that includes, or a sub-subject line that includes the match mention, especially, when you're struggling to come up with one, include match in that. The announcement bar on your website or a pop-up on your website, great place to put it. If you have a donor newsletter or a normal, organizational newsletter going out in April, think about maybe doing a donor profile on your matching donor or donors. Great way to talk about it in advance and get people excited. And then finally, social media. And particularly within that, I'd recommend talking about your match in your stories. Those are going to pop up at the top of your feed on Instagram and Facebook. And, hopefully the algorithm for stories works a little bit differently. So hopefully cut through some of the noise on social media on GiveBIG Day and actually be seen. And if you're going to do, an in-ad or an in-feed post about your match, I highly recommend putting some ad dollars behind it. And I mean real true Facebook advertising dollars, not just boosting, going in and getting it approved in advance and setting the criteria on who you want it to be seen by. If you have the capacity to do that work, that is my recommendation for actually being seen on GiveBIG Day on social media. And then finally, if you have peer-to-peer fundraisers, fabulous. Make sure they fully understand all the nuances of your match if you're doing something, a little more complicated than 100% of gifts or something like that.
I wanted to just chime in about the social media advertising. That's one that we sometimes miss or overlook in situations like this, but this is one of those times where if you have early giving and you're doing that, those 2 weeks can be a great time to actually use the Facebook advertising tools because it's going to have time to mature, right? Like setting up an ad or a boost, well, not a boost, because as we know, they're not working very well anymore. For 2 days, you might not get the most out of it if it takes a while to approve. So my recommendation would be, if you're doing early giving, align your ad investments, your social media advertising investments with that, and make sure you're setting that criteria very specifically to lookalike audiences, which is something, we don't have time to get into it here, but to the characteristics about your existing GiveBIG donors, and have social media work to go find and show your stuff to people whose behavior and characteristics and demographics resemble the people you already know do the thing that you want the new people to do.
Okay, almost to the end here. And with that in mind, I want to take just a step back and, review all of these concepts with an equity lens. I think centering our community needs and not donor needs is something in general we should always spend some time reflecting on. And so within matches, the type of match you choose, whether it's a percent or threshold, is something to consider. If you do choose that percentage match, think about enforcing the maximum match dollars amount per gift, because again, you're going to spread that match out and allow more donors to participate if you know that you have large gifts that are also going to be coming in day of. And if you choose to do a threshold match, I really encourage you to explore matching the number of donors participating instead of the dollars raised. I think that is a great way to, encourage people to participate of any capacity.
And I just want to name that I think it's really important to look at your match through an equity lens where possible. This is about inclusivity. And one of the things that we know about how folks who are not getting included farther down the line of opportunities in philanthropy and other areas is that they're not being brought in or given opportunities to participate earlier on. So this idea that this is a moment where we can acquire new donors who may not look like the traditional philanthropic donors who have been excluded from opportunities like this or not welcomed into philanthropic settings before. This is an opportunity for you to bring those folks in and create more opportunity for them to be even fuller and more robust participants later on, and start that journey earlier and be in community with you earlier. So this is one of those pieces that I think can feel like an afterthought, but in reality, it can be a huge part, not just of your strategy, but also about moving your organization more towards a community-centric fundraising model. So, which is something we really encourage. We know you can't get there overnight. This is a baby step you can take.
Yeah, and absolutely. And the next, looking at match conditions with an equity lens, this first one, not setting a minimum. The way I would illustrate this that I think hits home for me at least is you don't want to set a $20 minimum and then get a $12.76 gift that was made by a 8-year-old because it's their allowance and they care about your animal shelter, and not have that be matched. Like, you want donors of, you don't know what the backstory is, and $5 can be as meaningful as 50 or 500. So celebrating gifts of any size with your match is an easy way to do that. And potentially also looking at that setting that limits the match to 1 per donor. Again, I love my board member who wants to give 5 times over the course of GiveBIG. Love, love, love that. But I also want more people to be able to participate. So I might click that on. And then Finally, thinking about where we are sourcing this match from. So being aware of the power dynamics between donors and marginalized communities that we serve. We want to have a community-centric focus, as Ariel said, and not a donor-centric. So we're staying away from messaging that is, savior-oriented of the donor, saving communities. We don't want that. And one thing to consider here is the match pool. You're able to talk about, we have a community of supporters who are making this possible instead of just one donor. And finally, just reflecting once again on small matches can make a difference and are worth celebrating. I think that wraps this up. I've seen some activity happening in the chat, so I'm going to take just a second to review. But I think we're a relatively small group. Feel free to, unmute or turn your camera on to ask questions. We're all friends here. Oh yeah. What I meant by rerouting your main, websites, your organization's website to the GiveBIG page is literally taking your custom GiveBIG link and putting that somewhere on your donation page so your donors don't have to hunt around for it. It can be as simple as just putting that link in. It doesn't have to be a fancy button or anything like that.
Yeah, and can I add a little bit to that, Carolyn? Oh, excuse me, somebody had a question there?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, and we're a fairly new organization, so we don't have a large donor base yet. And I would be reaching out to different companies in our area for matches. Do you have specific recommendations for how to approach those companies? Is it in person, via email? And if it's email, do you have examples of email drafts that we could look over?
It really depends on what your relationship is, I think, how you want to approach a company like that. I think in general, a phone call might be my first approach, but again, it depends on your relationship.
And right now there is no relationship, so we would be cold calling these companies.
So I would love to ping in my thought on this question. Cold calling very rarely works in fundraising. And to some people that might be scary. To me, it's a relief. I would actually look at the available capacity you and your organization have for fundraising and think about whether cold outreach to corporations is the best use of your energy right now. You will probably be much more successful going to a donor you already know or a company you already know for a match, especially this close to the event, than cold calling corporate sponsors at this point. Just some real talk. I don't know that that's going to get you anywhere right now. And you would need some more time to develop relationships with folks for something really significant to come through in all likelihood. So that's just my general thinking about what you asked.
Another approach might be is if you have board members or close volunteers who have those relationships with local businesses or organizations, help them make that ask for you, or do a co-ask with those volunteers. Because again, just out of the blue contact, probably not the way to start off a successful relationship with a local business.
Caroline, can I jump in here for a second?
Mm-hmm.
Hi, just real quickly, and this is backing up a little bit to some questions about the details of rerouting your page back to the GiveBIG page. It's pretty simple to do. It's on your website is where you do that, where you have the button that says GiveBIG, right there. Underneath that, there will be a redirect URL the web person would have to put together and send it to your very specific GiveBIG URL. When you register, you'll get one. But this is a part of the whole spirit of the whole campaign. I just want to emphasize this a little bit more. We've had some organizations in the past that we found that they put in, they say give here, and it just goes directly to their giving platform. And that's not the whole spirit of GiveBIG. The spirit of it's really about we're all in this together. So we're all pooling this stuff together. So you want to reroute back to your GiveBIG platform so you can be counted in the overall total, get the match and so forth. So sorry about that introduction, but I just wanted to come, interruption, excuse me, but I want to come back to a little bit about the reroute. Thanks, Caroline.
And I'd like to ping off that because I mean, I can talk through a number of options for how you might want to look at your whole digital ecosystem in regards to GiveBIG. So one thing that what Greg mentioned, you can totally do. and like basically create a URL redirect. You can also, if you don't have a web admin, or you're, again, maybe you're all volunteer and you don't have someone who's the web guy, and you're running your own website like me, where I update our Squarespace website myself, haha. You can even just put a big link that says like, during Give Big, click here to go and give, right? Like, even if you can't like swap, or you don't know how to like change out an embedded platform page into a different one, there's hacks and easy ways to do that. Let's say somebody lands on your website, they don't go to your Washington Gives page, they make a donation to you anyway. That is when I would use the offline gift functionality inside Washington Gives to add them offline and as an offline gift, and make sure they can still be matched. This is something we do not want you to ask people to do this for all the reasons Greg said, but just in case, I want you to know that that functionality allows you to take a mistake gift that somebody didn't go to the right place to make the donation, and still bring it into the cause, and bring that upside. That said, this is a great reason to be extraordinarily careful about your links. If you're sending an email message out and you normally have like a donate button at the bottom, make sure that one's not sending people to your website the way it normally does. Make sure it gets updated, and every possible thing someone could click is sending people only to the Washington Gives page for your organization.
And you want to do that because you're going to set a goal, and you want to have that progress reflected with minimal, back end work on your side. So it'll just save you time in the long run if you're able to do that.
Now in the chat, there's a couple more questions. So Carolyn asks, using the equity lens, does this allow multiple matches to overlap with each one? In the past with Give More 24, PS, come to that webinar next week, we had to shut one off if exhausted and start the next one early. So in this case, you can have multiple matches going at the same time, I believe. This is not like a if one, then the next. So I believe it's more flexible than what seems to be the situation you had with the Give More 24 platform. And Kim Christensen is asking, in the past, there have been a match from GiveBIG itself. Will that be the case this year? To my knowledge, no. The stretch pool happened with Seattle Foundation. I believe there was a matching pool the first year of GiveBIG with 501 Commons, but that was not the case last year, and I believe will not be the case again this year. So there's no match out there lurking that you can take advantage of without finding it yourself, unfortunately.
Yeah. And somebody asked, having a banner on our homepage that says something like "Give to our Give Big campaign." Yeah, come April 18th when early giving starts, that's when you have that banner up. Yeah, absolutely. What other questions do folks have?
Just making sure that we're catching everything. Somebody earlier before asked about peer-to-peer and sort of what that is. So I would just encourage that person come back to our next webinar a week from today, because we will definitely be talking about that and a lot of the tips to make it work. So please come back, because we'd love to talk more about that. Kristen, you yeah.
Oh, you're muted.
Kristen, you're muted and you're talking. Start again.
I apologize. I was muted. I turned my camera on instead of my microphone. I apologize. So yesterday I was trying to get through everything before I got on this, and I feel like I kind of relate to Danielle Klein. Who do I contact to make sure I have the WA Give Big link? I felt like I got my page set up, but then I kept trying to connect it to Give Big, where you search for a fundraiser, and it kept saying that doesn't exist. Start your own fundraiser. And I was really confused about how to connect the website that I set up with you guys and get it to connect to Give Big. I can't figure out how to do that. I don't know.
Carolyn, or do you want me to?
I think, Greg, you take that one.
I think we're unfortunately not technical experts on the back end.
Crystal, we can take this offline, but in short, you were given a very specific URL when you registered, and it's going to have the big long thing, Give Big, and then your organization's name after that. But I can reach out to you afterwards and show you how to do that. Okay.
Yeah, and it could be that maybe I was still like in temporary, whatever,
yeah, you have to be approved mode. Once you're approved, then you will show up.
Yeah, I
that might
got
be
an
part of it too.
email this morning saying that I was approved. So maybe because I wasn't approved yesterday, I couldn't.
That
So
would
I'll
be
take
it.
another look. I didn't get a chance to look at it before this
Great.
webinar. So thank you. I'll take
No, it's
another.
good question.
Yeah, I
I think
think
there's quite a few people commenting that they're having some challenges. So maybe Greg, a follow-up email just directing folks to the right person to reach out to would be,
Yep.
be good. Yeah. Okay.
I love that you are all working on that setup now, though. A+ for getting in there early and not doing it on May 1st.
So Caroline, how can I cut through all the clatter and noise that's out there about GiveBIG? I get a lot of messages, and our nonprofit that I serve on has a match, and I want to get that out to a lot of folks. What are some ways I can get through that noise and get out there and tell everybody about our match?
Ariel is bursting to answer this, so I'll let
I
her.
am bursting to answer this question. This involves my favorite, like high tech, low tech, not actually really super tech solution for email deliverability. So number one, really, Greg, the first thing to do is to do the peer-to-peer fundraising and to involve that, because what will happen is people will get 1 million emails on GiveBIG, and they'll see one from organization X with a generic subject line. And then the next one is, oh, that's my friend. And they said, hey, I have a favor to ask you. Which one of those is going to get opened? The one from your friend that says, hey, I've got a favor to ask you, right? So peer-to-peer fundraising and allowing your peer-to-peer fundraisers to, and giving them the tools and asking them and following up and making sure they're doing outreach, that is one way. And, use the tools that are built into the platform. The second one is a solution that I adore. You can do this if you have Outlook, if you're on the Microsoft ecosystem. You can also do it if you're on the Google ecosystem. It'll require some kind of plugin. And our favorite one is called Yet Another Mail Merge. There are tools that allow you to take a spreadsheet and create a form email, just like you would, making thank you letters. Dear, insert first name here. Thank you for your gift of X dollars in X year. Right. And those are little variable data points. You can actually do that via email and send what appears to be and actually is a true email from a real human that will get to your actual inbox and not your promotions tab, which is the real issue with email deliverability from like MailChimp or whatever. It's going straight to people's promo or updates tabs. Use an email mail merge tool to do personalized, high deliverability email at scale, and those emails will get opened. They're coming from a real person. They will actually land in the inboxes. And honestly, have the development assistant get into the ED's inbox and they can do it. The ED doesn't have to do it themselves, but it can come from your executive director. So that's my favorite way to kind of cut through, is to kind of actually jump the line and not even really necessarily rely solely on those commercial email tools.
Yeah, I would just add that, if you're using a tool like Yet Another Mail Merge, again, on the paid version, you can see who's opened and clicked it, which is really helpful. They also include the ability to add an unsubscribe link at the bottom. We don't want to be spamming people ever. So just if you're going to use that tool, love to see it when people put that unsubscribe down at the bottom in the fine print, so that you're not going to get in trouble for bad email mailing practices.
And I might honestly, I love what you mentioned, Caroline, about sorry, I just saw the next question that Camilla put in and totally lost my train of thought. So do you suggest to send a mail merge to selected group of donors? Ooh, Caroline, you want to talk about, we'll come back to mine when I remember. You want to talk about the GiveBIG Superstar strategy?
Yeah, so years ago, with an organization I was the development director at, we started really marketing a particular name for supporters of GiveBIG. And so if you'd supported for 1 or more years, you became a GiveBIG superstar. A tool like a mail merge for email will allow you to say hey, Ariel, you've been a GiveBIG superstar for our organization for 5 years. Really, those mail merges allow you to put in custom fields where your spreadsheet has donor name, email address, for 5 years, and you can input those things. So it's a personalized message they're getting about you've supported us for X number of years, and that has been really outstanding. Would you consider supporting again?
I would absolutely target those people.
Yeah, make those previous GiveBIG donors feel special, because you already know that they are inclined to give on this day at this time of year. You can also, if you're doing a merge, look at what their previous gift amount was. If they were giving, they gave 50 one year, 75 the next year, 100 last year, you can say, hey, would you make an $125 gift this year, and putting in that specific amount. Again, much simpler to do that with a spreadsheet than trying to get, a MailChimp system or a constant contact system to work with custom fields like that. So it's something to play with if you have, the capacity to master a new tool and test it a few times prior to GiveBIG.
And this makes me have a smile on my face because I was one of the GiveBIG superstar donors to that organization. So I would routinely, like, after over several years, get several emails from Caroline being like, you're a GiveBIG superstar. And I was like, yeah, okay, I'm going to give again.
We got wild. We started, you get a special like survey that tells you what Harry Potter character you are if you donate this year. That was a really creative organization.
Kristen, no, you will not email someone generally if they unsubscribe from the yet another mail merge tool. It's a plugin run differently than your straight up Google account, so you'll be fine.
Yeah, still, but I add a subnote that's like, don't want to get messages from our staff like this, unsubscribe here. It looks less like a mail merge, or it looks less like a MailChimp email and more like a Gmail or a Outlook email, but I think folks can still tell that it's a form letter. So yeah, putting that unsubscribe at the bottom will definitely confirm that, and they can opt in or out.
Yeah. So Chitra, I see your comment that you use MailChimp, but you're unable to personalize with names because you don't have them for a lot of people, just their emails. So two things. Number one, pull a report out of your database that has donors, who have done a certain behavior, right? People who gave to GiveBIG last year or last year and the year before, whatever, anytime in the last 3 years. Pull that out, you'll have the first names associated with those donors. That's assuming you have a CRM. Which maybe is true, maybe not. But secondly, what that tells me is go to your MailChimp account and make your email sign-up form require people to give you their first name. You don't have to require anything else. You don't have to require last name, but you are 100% correct that having dear actual name, even from a commercial system like MailChimp, really does improve people's response to email. So A, let's try to hack that and shortcut that fact for GiveBIG by using some of these other techniques and pulling data from your CRM instead. And B, in the future, make it so that people can't sign up without giving you their first name. And you'll eventually build a list that has that.
And if you have 50-50, like you have 50% you have first names and 50% you don't, and for this year, as you're working on getting those names in the future, you should be able to set a condition in MailChimp. And I think if you Google this, it'll come up pretty quick, that says like, if there's a first name, put that first name. If not, put friend, or whatever the generic salutation is. So you can, you're not going to get some of them with the personalization, but you will get the ones you do have. I wanted to go back up in the chat, Laura, your question about stretch goal concept as it's related to goal proximity in a way that I can share with my board. Great question. So goal setting, what I recommend is just make sure you set a goal that you can hit, because you can always set a stretch goal and go farther. So if you've participated in GiveBIG in the past and know where you've landed, set a goal that is going to reasonably get you there, and then plan, like have messaging built out in advance for when you hit that goal and you're going to announce a stretch goal. The reason you might want to do this is because it feels way better to be able to share with your community that you've got there, and that, we've been so successful, we're setting this stretch goal, and if we hit the stretch goal, we can do XYZ, than being like, we are so close yet so far from our goal. And that being able to message that success just is gonna prove the social support of your initiative and bring in more donors.
Yeah, the achievable goal concept is something, I'm glad you asked about putting this in front of your board specifically, because this is something we see a lot. People have this misconception that when you set extremely high goals, that's really motivational, when in reality, everything we know about human psychology, and there's data to prove this, says that when people see something enormous like that, we don't go, aha, I'm tackling it. We go, oh God, that is scary. And I don't see where my $50 fits in. I don't see where my $25 fits into a $20,000 goal or something like that. Board members are often the people who have those misconceptions. And so they might be pushing you to set like really big goals because they think that's how you're going to get there. In reality, as Caroline said, when you set a goal that is achievable, you take control of the narrative of the story that you are in with your donor. You guys are on a journey together because your organization and your donors, what you really are two entities who care about the same thing and who want to see the same change happen in the world. So when you set a goal that is achievable and you know you're going to pass it and you have that messaging prepared, the story with the donor becomes, oh my God, we did this thing together, not please make it, please help. And it'll like ultimately what our experience is that we see organizations raise more with an achievable initial goal and a plan for a stretch goal that's marketed and figured out well in advance. So it's not a surprise and you don't have to scramble to figure out what to do when you hit your goal early. We see them raise more money that way than by setting some giant big goal that is sort of falsely appears to be motivational to the majority of people looking at it.
This may be like when you're talking about your goal, you have your public facing goal that you're going to announce during early giving that may be $10,000. Internally, your internal goal is that actually you're going to get to 15 and you know that and you're planning for that. But you're just, I think that language nuance, public versus internal, can be a helpful concept to say like, no, we know what's in the budget and we know that, we set this realistic 15K goal, but just to be able to have this level of excitement, we're going to set, 12.5 or 10K initially so that it's also, like sometimes when you're wondering what to talk about, emails on GiveBIG need to be short and sweet. Like nobody is going to read a super, super long email. Being able to have an email that is alert, we have a stretch goal. Here's why, here's what we can do with it. That kind of builds your email for you right there. And your donors will be excited to see that and celebrate that success with you. Keep going.
Yeah. I wish I had a one pager that I could just send you that has all of this documented, but we don't, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Very much. That's so helpful.
Awesome.
Of course. Well, it's 10:57. Greg, do we have time for a couple more questions in that time, or let us know if you want to wrap up?
If you couldn't see me, yes, please keep going. We got more questions coming in. I'm trying to answer some of
Yeah.
things.
Sorry, I was in the conference room and moved. It's almost done.
Oh.
So you're totally good.
Yeah, let's see.
I am going to put my email in the chat. I will, if you email me and remind me, I will try and find the MailChimp explanation of how to do the dear friend versus dear personal first name. Oh, and thank you. Asking for more tools on Facebook ads, Google email merge. It looks like you have a Facebook ads slide share in there. So take a look at that.
I didn't have anything on Google, but I've got the other two things that people had asked about, Facebook and also the setup. The best thing to do is you follow the instructions that are on the support page. And if that doesn't help, I have had tremendous success with the Mighty Cause tech support folks. Write them or call them and they do get back to you fairly quickly and will help you out. So other questions, folks, you got the experts right here, right in front of you right now. They're for you, please. Questions, anything good of the order, anything else that can help you with your GiveBIG match or peer-to-peer. We're going to get to that next week too. Bev, yes.
I'm just saying thank you. I
Oh,
appreciate
good.
the additional information. Great to see all of you again.
Hi,
Some of
Bev.
you
Nice
I've
to
been
see you.
around for a long time, so
Thank you for coming.
you're welcome.
Oh, here's a repeat question. It's just an
Oh, we missed that.
You
Go ahead.
don't get upset if they give on day one and then you announce a match on day two. Interesting question.
I have never had an organization get feedback from a donor like that, or at least if they have, they've never told us. I'll go into full therapist mode here and say that your strategy, unfortunately, you're not responsible for dealing with people's emotions and reactions to things like that, which is an easy way of saying you can't control that. So go for the strategy that you know will work. And frankly, if a donor wants to give to you enough to complain that they missed the match, that is a great opportunity to engage that donor. The people who like care enough to complain are actually better prospects for the future than people who are like, oh man, I missed that, but I don't care enough to let them know that that bothered me. So look at it as an opportunity if it does happen, but otherwise don't worry too much about it.
Great answer. I love Ariel in therapist mode.
All right, we got fundraising and therapist experts here. Anything else for Caroline or Ariel? If not, there's a question, one more. Can we use recent donation as a match?
Up to you and the donor. It's all about what you and the donor agree upon about how you leverage that or recognize it publicly. So.
Great questions.
Okay.
Caroline, Ariel, go to the order. Anything you need to add?
No, we'll hopefully see many of you next week at peer-to-peer. That'll be fun too. So.
Excellent. Please do come. Yes. Caroline, do you have any note? Anything else?
No, just I was going to say the same thing. We'll have a chance to dig into what peer-to-peer is if it's your first time and who to approach about that, which I think is maybe the biggest question in most people's minds. So come on over, same time, same place next week. Not same place, probably a different Zoom link.
Yeah, it'll be a different Zoom link. But thank you so much for coming today. We really appreciate your participation in this, and we will be posting the recording of this on our website, along with the other presentations we've been giving. So we'll see you next week, hopefully, at our peer-to-peer. And thank you again for coming.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody.
Nice to see you all.